Alrighty.
We have launched.
Alrighty. Welcome to Planet Green Cheese. Welcome, everybody. Michael Komorn at the post here, starting officially. It is episode number 318. We're calling it the Casablanca Years. I'll explain what that means maybe later on. And as those that listen may know that we're about to talk about cannabis, the cannabis plant, specifically in the phylum Cannabis sativa, the evil weed drug. Somehow authorized medicinally in Michigan. And alongside of me to help us do that are the people that are really, truly committed to this cause. There's only three, and should be committed for that. We have our technical director, who was 10 minutes slow connecting everything. Chad from the Birmingham Compassion.
Good evening. It's nice to be here.
Missing, don't know where they are, but we hope they're doing well. No, they did ask for a pass in the attendance call, but it was not granted, but we'll still call them out. Rick Thompson, our news editor, not here, but wish him well. He may be calling up for news. I'm not sure. Jamie didn't really communicate with me. Jamie Lowell, of course, our producer, who is not here either. Third Coast Compassion. But we do have, make things much more entertaining, a lot more humor and laughs and some song. Jim Powers from Michigan Parents for Compassion and the MILegalize board member. Do we still want to the association? Okay, of course.
Yeah. We're still, we're still fighting the fight, and we've got some exciting, well, not really exciting, but new news from the fight a little later. So stay tuned for that.
That was inappropriate. I'm a little.
It was.
It
was. It's like
I've
been punched in the gut enough this week, Michael. It's been a great week.
All right. That's how it starts.
It is not over yet.
I do understand. Oh, by the way, we have, speaking of been a great week. Jeff, internationally renowned attorney Frazier, and iguana lover and Galapagos king. Please welcome Jeff Frazier.
Hello, everybody.
And that's it. That's our studio. What we do have is we've got apparently Rick Thompson, Eric, and Theo. They're gathered together somewhere in Thetford, location not to be announced. But it's apparently a lot of people are doing this these days. They're called a PGT listening party.
Oh, good.
People get together and they listen to the topics and
are they going to
subject matter.
Are they going to call in and participate?
Engage in adult activities. I think that they'd call in if they'd like to, but if they want to. We may not take their call, but if they want to, they can.
Well, we'll have to see.
All right, so let me do a couple of shout-outs right here that we like to do. Of course, we've got our people, Eric Gunnels mentioned, Theo, Wendy, Jeanette Frazier, Dewey, Pam, Bob, Knucklehead Bob Carey, Dr. Bogner, the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association, and David Leiter, art director. Tonight, we are going to be talking about, amongst other things, 3 bills defining a medical cannabis distribution system for Michigan have now passed the Michigan Senate and House and are expected to be signed by the governor soon. Michigan MILegalize lost its last-ditch effort to make the 2016 ballot, but continues to fight in vows another petition drive. If also kept from being on the ballot for the 2018 election. Discussion with law enforcement crackdown and even more on caregivers and home gardens after the bills take effect. Regular guests of the show, Jim Powers, Michigan Parents for Compassion, founder and board member of MILegalize, Jeff Frazier, David Roy's not here, Eric Gunnels. All right, that's a bad posting. What was that?
What? I'm really confused.
Okay, David, what?
The last paragraph was redundant, right? I'm not completely losing my mind.
Which part?
You repeted the last
I know,
paragraph.
of course, because I'm reading
Thank
off
God.
of a poorly put together
Okay.
notes from the
It's for emphasis.
producer.
Like
emphasis.
italics.
All right, so we're not using a shell. We've abandoned that. No one can keep me in the shell. Jamie's not here, and there's no going to force us to do that. We're going to go on our own. But we are going to be mindful of the breaks. So this is what we do. We take a break at 8:15, which is right now.
Right now.
We started 10 minutes late.
That's
we'll take
fine.
a break. We'll come back. We'll figure it out. But and I may rant a little bit, and then we'll figure out what we're doing. Listen to Planet Green Juice. We'll be right back, and we're going to get right into this. Alrighty, we're back. Thanks for staying with us. And as I mentioned, in the studio with me, Jeff Frazier, Jim Powers, and Chad. And there's a listening party going over somewhere in Thetford. And I'm sure there's other people. Please call in if you want. We are going rogue tonight. We're no shell, not listening to anybody. We're
totally rogue.
If you want to yell and scream because you're pissed off about something, we'll
no
take that
producer.
Chad.
Oh, yeah.
Jim Powers must
so
be...
we've got a
standard mic issues.
We have a brand new phone number for people to call in on. So if you want to call in and participate, it is 224-803-3098.
All right, Jim, so you've been intimate with these bills that have been passed or, moving along. Tell us what happened since we last met on Sunday. Sunday, if many of you may recall, we convened for a special Sunday night PGT episode. I don't think anyone in this room's family speaks nicely of Jamie Lowell for making us do that. But nevertheless, we did because we were all committed, as we are here tonight, without Jamie Lowell.
Right.
And we talked a lot about what the bills meant. We analyzed them a little bit. Shiler was here. And as we expected, the bills went to the House and passed overwhelmingly. And were there any surprise votes that we...
There were. I was surprised to see a lot of the Democrat. Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but there was a subsection of the Democrats that voted against 4209 and 4827. There were also some Republicans, and people were citing everything from taxing medicine to the transport issue, and then you just had the people that just don't like marijuana. Yeah. But they certainly passed overwhelmingly. No doubt that I think at this point that the governor will sign all three bills once they reach his desk.
Hey, announce the number again.
Yeah, so one more time, if you want to call in and talk to us about these bills, it's 224-803-3098.
Now, there was some...
unvarnished, uncensored. Call in.
Yeah. We're going rogue.
There was some... no, don't say that. Come on.
No, not
there was
totally
some concerns. There was this bill that went under the radar. Someone's going to have to give me the code. But it seemingly suspended due process because of the administrative agency. It set aside the administrative rules for dispute resolution.
Yes. And the explanation, and we had a meeting at Third Coast a couple days ago. Chad and I were both there.
I saw you. You're on Facebook, all of you, and I think the FBI was watching also, but keep going.
Yeah, well, we're all on the list. So as soon as I started hanging out with Jeff Frazier, I just had to realize I was going to be on that list, I think.
You know what, at this point, Jim Powers...
and many more.
As Jeff Frazier says, at this point, Jim Powers, if they're not tapping your phone, then there's something wrong.
That's right. But we had a meeting out there and discussed it.
Don't disclose location. Yeah.
What? Yeah.
I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No, it was a good time.
I know. I wanted to be there, but I saw it. I watched it on Facebook.
Yeah.
So and the answer to the question regarding this add-on under the radar bill that would suspend traditional due process rights.
The Administrative Rules Act. Jeff Irwin actually Representative Jeff Irwin had a kind of a devil's advocate view, if you will, of it, and said that it could be, explained away in the respect that when the program is implemented, that the agency is going to want to act quickly to implement it, and in order to do so, they'll have to do it without being able to take public input, basically. However, I don't think any of us are fooled. This is, like you said, a lack of due process. We're entitled.
Wait. So Irwin was defending it, or
no. I don't think he was defending it at all. He was simply saying that the explanation that was being offered was that the agency wanted to implement the program quickly, and in order to do that, they wanted to suspend the rules for a period of time.
That's insane.
I understand.
I mean, especially if the rules are associated with fairness in application. And
they're taking away our right to be involved. I mean, that's...
Well, here's the thing. It goes like this. If you believe in the fairness and the potential equality of the... We have Alan Peiser in the queue, I understand. Let's get Alan in the
Alan is in the queue.
It's a good time to call him because Jamie's not here. Those two are like oil and water.
I know. Alan,
as
are you
Dr.
there?
Ebner spoke about that in THC and blood in my trial this last couple of days. What? Okay.
Totally unvarnished.
Yeah. Do we have Alan Peisner on the line?
All right.
Alan?
Yes, I'm here.
Unvarnished.
Jim Powers, I have a question I have a question for you, Jim Powers. What do you think about 4210? Does it provide you any relief?
So my family is protected under House Bill 4210. So it's it's a sticky situation for me because one of the things that I've always said in the fight for the fix to the Carruthers issue is that I would never agree to restrict solvents, and that's exactly what happened. When this bill came out of the House, butane was restricted in the respect that it wasn't allowed inside of a residential structure when you were doing the extraction. And I felt that was an appropriate compromise, as did our group, Michigan Parents for Compassion. Once they decided to say the curtilage of that structure, we kind of had to take a step back, because what it really, in essence, is doing is turning some of our parents into 4-year felons. So that's one issue that we have with it. Just from a personal opinion, I'm not a big fan of them robbing the general or the patient registration fund to the tune of $8.6 million for the implementation of 4209. I feel like the businesses should have to bear the brunt of that expense and not the patients. Between that and the labeling and manifest issue, which basically says that if you're going to transport medibles or concentrates, that they have to be labeled, and caregivers have to carry a manifest, and if you don't, it's a $250 civil infraction. We did have kind of a win there. The police really wanted that to be a criminal penalty, and we were able to get it down to a civil infraction, but it's still not good enough. It's a huge trade-off, and I don't feel like anybody really won with these bills. I think that things changed a bit. I think the structure changed, but I feel like we were out for a very specific goal and kind of missed the mark.
Well, it only took them 3 years to give parents who give the oil to their children any protection with this law. My concern with it is how it ties in with the secure transporter law, and that if you're not a caregiver and you're doing it for a dispensary, then if you're making oil in that manner, then you're adding the double cost of secure transporting from the grower to the processor, and then from the processor to the dispensary.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge issue with 4209, and I think that everyone would agree with that. Especially Chad. Chad is not a fan of securely transporting marijuana, not in an armored vehicle.
So
it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, since it's supposed to mirror to some degree the 3-tier alcohol system, you would think that it would be similarly guarded. And I don't know that they use armored cars for beer, do they?
No. And I think it bears mentioning that the new version doesn't require the vehicles to be armored.
I understand that.
But it's still the intent. And, yeah, I mean, even using the comparison of alcohol, I think, is inappropriate. We're not talking about alcohol. We're either talking about medicine or we're talking about a plant, really at its core. And
Yes, unfortunately, all of these bills add tremendous costs that will have to be borne, I think, by the patients. That if these provisioning centers are going to stay in business and operate a profit, someone has to pay for the secure transport. Someone's going to have to pay for all the paperwork that's involved with the state manifest, with things like from seed to sale, or some people say from seed to jail, to pay for all these new things. I just am really concerned about what type of cost this is going to add to patients who want to stay legal. It may force them into the black market.
Well, that's always been, I think, everybody's argument, and unfortunately, it is what it is at this point. These bills, I wholeheartedly expect to pass or be signed by the governor, barring some major disruption. I don't think that they won't.
Yeah,
be.
I agree. I agree.
It is what
Despite
it is.
Bouchard's opposition.
Well, Well, he's always made his opinion very clear.
Well, I'm glad they left the counties out of this equation.
Yeah,
that's his problem.
But
quite a flip-flop of power, really, when you think about it. I think that's kind of interesting because they have total power at this point.
Yeah, they really do. But it's 8:30, guys. Why don't we take a quick break, slam it and jam it, and then we'll come back. Alan, hold on. We're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna come back, and we're gonna talk to the iguana lover, Jeff Frazier himself, about the MILegalize pending action in the Supreme Court, as well as the lawsuit filed by Dakota Cerna and Sean Myers against the state of Michigan. So,
you guys are doing a great job with this show. Keep up the good work.
Alan, Jeff Frazier's going to play a song.
Oh, yeah.
Right now? Now or no?
Whenever you say.
Okay, fine.
Should I play a harmonica with this song?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Went fight on some far distant shore. In Fallujah, we went door to door, Dakota. Memories of that fight used to torture me at night. Now we don't have to suffer anymore. My little girl was born in constant pain. Seizures always roaring through her veins. Turns out that her need is for therapeutic weed. Now that helps my baby break her chain. We don't have to suffer anymore. Fact that is good medicine we simply can't ignore. It ain't nothing but a plan. Don't come kicking down our door. We don't have to suffer anymore. We finally reach our golden years. The tremors and the aches and pains and tears, and that existential dread starts to creep inside your head. So come on down and puff away your fears. Now we don't have to suffer anymore. Fact that is good medicine simply can't ignore. It ain't nothing but a plan, so don't come kicking down my door. Hey, we don't have to suffer anymore. So roll me up and smoke me when I die. And if they don't like it, well, you just look them in the eye. I ain't come here and I ain't leaving, so don't sit around and cry. They roll me up and smoke me when I die. I said roll me up and smoke me when I die.
Yeah!
It was in stereo, too, I believe.
It was.
All right, so I'm taking questions from the field, and one came in asking some things about... let's see. First question was, it appears that in the Section M, page 11, primary caregivers shall not transfer a marijuana-infused product to any individual that is not a registered, directly connected patient.
Right.
Is that right?
That's right.
So it's not an expansion of any actions in the MMA from the MMA that we may know it, but it doesn't prohibit the transferring of those infused products to your own 5 patients.
Also, concentrates don't have to be labeled, only infused products.
Is that right?
That's something that's important to note.
Also, and significant for that they restate in the, licensing marijuana new thing, is that Section 8 is not effectuated in any way. Section 8 still applies because it's within the framework of quote-unquote medical marijuana.
Yes.
And it would seem as if there'd have to be an expansion of that, like a dispensary would or should be able to be like an entity at that point. I think they are, right? They would be. They do. Right?
What?
It's a person. I think they describe him as a person.
The dispensary?
Yeah.
No, I don't believe so.
It could be a person.
Dispensaries are people, too.
That's right.
So are corporations, right?
They can have firmly held religious beliefs.
People want to know this. What about the Fifth Amendment challenge to the manifest issue that it requires you to
self-incriminate,
give information? I mean, what's the significance of it? It's like if you create an industry that forces you to disclose information that would otherwise be protected in the alternate universe that you live in.
No, it's simple. I mean, marijuana is still illegal federally, right?
Of course.
So by putting your name on a bottle of a controlled one substance, that could potentially
Understood.
create an issue for
Understood.
you.
Without some kind of commitment to therein the protection thereof. And I would even say, forget that. What about the activity and the oversight and the mandatory waiver of your, a waiver of your what otherwise was the most sacred of information.
Yep.
In the MMA, it becomes the least sacred, and information for. I just don't know how they're going to. I mean, I see it as a problem on a lot of levels when people start to realize it. That
you really think people will care? I mean, we care, but I don't really think that most people will give a damn. Frankly, I think it's a shame, but people will go and get their marijuana from the marijuana store. It'll have their name on it, and they'll walk out and go on with their lives. And hopefully they don't get in trouble. I don't know. I think that it's symptomatic of a bigger issue. People don't understand that their rights are being taken from them.
Jeff, what do you think? You think it's a social issue? Do you think people, especially the cannabis community, I mean, I guess it's medicine. If you need it, you're going to do whatever you got to do. If it's a hospital, it's the same kind of thing. But hospitals are not directly connected into the state police. And, for example, the bill collecting, it seems from this bill, is done by the Attorney General's office. Do you see that? Yeah, one of the sources of the oversight will be the Lara and the Attorney General's office for collecting revenue. Yeah.
Revenue. That's straight out of Prohibition, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
On his horse.
I don't know that I would ever go to one of these things, frankly.
We say that now. I mean, I know. Listen, and that may be us. I'm not saying, because we are all, we've looked at this from a lot of different ways. Obviously, but there are people who just want to be able to buy an ounce of marijuana or sickness, the accessibility, and they don't care where it comes from, the consistency of it, and whatever. I don't know, but I think they're going to go a long way before they're going to be able to. But
half ounce. There are people that want to just buy a half ounce of marijuana,
or just a gram,
every day or every other day. Every day or every other day, like going up and checking it differently. Yeah, it works like that.
Yeah,
they enjoy the getting out of the house and seeing someone.
We got
the interaction at the store.
Yeah, I mean they like they like the whole experience. They like the variety. I mean, there's a lot of good things about the dispensaries too, but it's just that
I think the key
at what cost.
I'll tell you what. And this is the other thing. I always thought they were important in this. I don't know what, but in terms of a centralized place where people could gather information, and exchange information.
So
Compassion Chronicles were supposed to be that. Is that right, Chad?
I think we have someone on the line that might want to jump in on that exact conversation. We've got Reverend Steve Thompson on the line. So let's
legend.
Let's bring him.
This is awesome.
Reverend Steve, you're on Planet Green Trees.
How are you?
Reverend Steve, thank
How
you.
are you?
Thanks for calling in. Long time no talk. I know we follow. We know how you're doing stuff, but tell everyone what's been going on up your neck of the woods.
Well, before I do, Michael, let me wish you a belated happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. It's not till later. So I don't know. Someone else fault it's early. Someone's counting out early, but it's later than. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Well, basically, my phone's been ringing off the hook up here. I'm getting to the point where I'm getting really frustrated with all the calls coming in. What's this mean? What's going to happen? And everything. I did call the governor's office today. I found it interesting. The woman transferred me to an aide, a governor's aide, and her name was Janet. In talking to her for about 15 minutes, she told me that she was 68 like myself, and she said the governor had her taking a tally of the calls that were coming in on the medical bills, and I told her, I said, well, as far as the medicals bill, I said, I don't think it's the greatest, but I think it's something that we can live with. But I said the dispensary bill and the seed to tracking bill, and she interrupted me and says, yes, they are both tie-barred together. And I said, that means that if he vetoes one, he has to veto both. And she says, that is correct. And I said, well, that's exactly what he should do. I said, and then she wanted to know my reasons why, and I told her my reasons why, and she wrote them down. And that really interested me that she took all that time in listening to what I had to say.
Did she care to comment if she'd gotten other calls similar to yours, or did she not go that far?
She did not go that far. She just told me that the governor was having her take a tally of the calls that were coming in on the bills and what the people had to say.
Taking a tally. I guess that's how the governor decides what legislation he's going to sign, is the tally, how many tick marks it got.
Right. It almost sounds that way. And, of course, I've been saying this for years. I've been telling people this for years, Get off your computers, quit bitching and whining and moaning on your computers, and instead spend that time and call your reps and call the governor's office, call the attorney general's office, and bend their ears.
Reverend Steve, why don't you, I'm kind of curious. Tell me what your perspective of your side of the state in terms of is there a dispensary, existing dispensary, are they functioning up there? Are there some that still remain that are able to operate with some local approval and no bother from the state? Or is there just all out? Do you know, are they existing? And I'm curious if those individuals, if you know them, had anything to do with supporting the bills or opposing them?
Well, we do have, as of last year, we had 3 dispensaries here in Benzie County, and all 3 of them were raided and put out of business. Grand Traverse County is a whole horse of a different color because the prosecutor up there, he's a good prosecutor, and he just simply will not. He told TNT and the Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Department and the Traverse City Police that he will not prosecute anything like that. And so, therefore, they leave the dispensaries alone up there. The closest one to us here in Benzie County is just over the Benzie Grand Traverse line in Interlaken. And I know the owner there, and he has been selling his product for as little as 10 a gram. And he just got an onslaught of new people coming in because we had a bust here about 2 weeks ago of a good friend of mine, Ron Snyder, and 2 others, and he felt that they felt they were doing everything right. It was a grow up, and between 6 caregivers, they were taking care of 30 patients, and a lot of those 30 patients came from the raids of the dispensaries last summer that had no place to go other than up to Traverse City, and And the other ones in Traverse City are just ridiculous in price. I've heard as much as 30+ a gram, and most of these people are on fixed income or low income and just simply can't afford that. But anyway, I recommended several of these patients to Ron and his crew, and these 30 patients, not one of them have ever paid a cent for their medicine. Their medicine has always been provided to them for free, and they
let me ask you this, because
as they need.
Because a lot of the support, so-called support for these bills, came from the business owners of some of the medical marijuana establishments. I think it goes without saying that a lot of the MPRA ultimately backed these bills, and there was another. What's the other group in Detroit? MCDA. And
Evergreen Management.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know who these organizations are. I think I could speculate, but
I know who they are.
Jim, I was not trying to name names, but it's I'm just kind of telling you, if would you? I mean, you may not know how they felt or if they influenced. Because some of these, some of the organizations think that it's important that they have something that's in place, whatever it may be, as long as there's a retail. They don't really think beyond that, and then they lose sight of the bigger picture. But what do you think the community there's from the business side was favoring or opposing these bills?
Well, the ones, the three that are up in Traverse City, right in Traverse City, are owned by the same people, and I don't have any contact with them, but I do know the dispensary owner in Interlaken, and he definitely is not happy with this, with these bills, or with these two bills, and feels that. And his big question to me was, is this going to put me out of business, or are we that are up here already operating, are we going to be grandfathered in? Do we have to now, are we going to be required to apply for the state licensing and everything? And I said, that's a good question, and I don't have the answer for it.
You know what? Let's do that. Let's debate that for a little bit. What do you think about that, Jim Powers? We're going to talk about what happens to the people who are currently in play. And what happens to them, those people that are currently in play. Why don't we do this? We're going to take a break. We're right at a perfect time to take a break.
Perfect.
Reverend Steve, stay with us. We'll take a quick break.
All right.
Frazier, you want another one? If you want.
We got Jeff Frazier.
All right, Jeff Frazier's got another one live in the studio. Hang with us, Reverend Steve.
There's no end revolution in our time. Can't stop evolution with your mind. There's a fine distinction between progress and extinction. They're walking with no rhythm and no rhyme. There'll be a price paid now very soon for knocking round a golf ball on the moon. There's a fine distinction, progress and extinction, walking with no rhythm and no rhyme. Such an ancient tale, just like Jonah and the whale. Cain and Abel taught us how to build a better jail. Once again, my happy friend, please could you spare a dime? There's no end revolution in our time. Wish I could control wind and rain. Wish I could get my ball and chain. Stop the world from turning, stop the Amazon burning, stop whatever's causing all your pain. Such an ancient tale, just like Jonah and the whale. Cain and Abel taught us how to build a better jail. Once again, my happy friend, please could you spare time? There's no end to revolution in our time. No end to revolution. No ultimate solution. No final constitution. There's no end to revolution in our time. In our time. In our time. In our time. In our time.
That's when you know you have a radio show, a real one. Jeff Frazier, live here in the studio. And he's an attorney. You can believe that. Unbelievable. All right, let's get back. We got some special phone calls. We have Reverend Stephen the Q and Cindy Hinkle is now calling in. I understand, right? Second President?
Yeah. There we go. So let's we'll bring
him back
Reverend Steve back on, and we'll bring Cindy on here, and we can talk. I believe the question you were posing is what happens to the people that are operating now.
Right. I'm not going to. Well, let's hear what everyone thinks. I mean, there's obviously the issue of the local the local option. In order for anyone to even have an opportunity to get a license, there has to be the approval of the local municipality. And you would think that those places that already have that approval and are operating with some government, blessing, so to speak, that when the time comes, the city, if they haven't already produced an ordinance and or some kind of licensing procedure, which would be required, they in turn would, as some have called it, be the sponsor, so to speak, in the application to the state for those various licenses. And that's always therein lies the unknown right now. We don't know whether that is an equal access path or whether or not it's saved for the few. But I don't want to. This is the night where people can just call and talk about and rant and bitch and moan, I guess, if they want. So please let our guests respond and talk about that or whatever else they want to.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for coming.
My concern is the patients and their current caregivers. A lot of the caregivers give away meds to those that are low income and on a fixed income because they can't afford to buy it. Now these people, the patients, what are they going to do now?
Well, I think it bears mentioning nothing has really changed with the act outside of.
We all know that this is going to change down the road.
Let's fast forward to that moment. That's what I'm saying. And let me be your specific.
Let's cross that road when we get to it.
But it will be some time. But she's asking about, you mean in terms of those caregivers that have been able to somewhat be involved in this kind of, this organic market.
Compassionate thing.
Right, but where they're giving their meds away, but they're able to get some revenue from the existing dispensary system, so to speak?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
You're just saying, okay, but just people that grow it and are just altruistic and give it away, what's going to happen to the patients?
Yeah, they don't need the money. They like to do it because they grow, they have compassion.
Well,
I'm sure some of their patients are able to pay for it, so that offsets their cost of electricity and what they need to grow with.
Of course.
One of my concerns is, what if these townships don't allow these provisioning centers? how are people get the medicine if there's nothing in their city or their township?
Well, nothing will interfere with the existing caregiver system. I mean, it shouldn't, until there's some action. And a lot of people think and believe that is the path that they're going. However, those are arguably two competing markets. And, the naysayer would suggest that it'd be very difficult for this new entity to exist and thrive when you have, a very, like a market that is developed organically and prices are low and patients are getting meds for free and and that's the competing market. How is this new money-driven, tax-driven, revenue-collecting, industry that's inviting investors that are money invested here and get it later? How are they going to compete with that out of the gate? But remember, they have to win. They got so much invested in this now.
Exactly. So you take away the caregiver system, then everybody has to go to the provisioning centers.
That is, of course, the fear. You take out the competition. The argument was that they didn't create 150 new police or regular.
I don't think they want competition.
Well, the joke was this is such an awesome bill for the police that they got 150 police jobs and regulatory jobs so they could not regulate this. It'd be to go after the competition. That was always the fear. But one of the things that I do think, I was trying to make this argument just to keep some optimism in all this, is that in order for them to really truly compete, they have to have statewide, competition because, there's no one, they're not going to be able to generate the revenue that they're going to desire by just having 3 dispensaries. You know what I mean? Right. In order to get access and get those patients to go, break off from their caregivers or even be interested, there's got to be something inviting, and no one's going to want to drive further. Pay more
and the prices aren't going to bite them either.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So there's that is there, but I don't know who that goes to. I mean, it could be, and back to Reverend Steve, those local, groups. One would hope to believe that because the city is there, endorsing them. But on the other hand, the qualifications could be, you had a dispensary before there was law. Checkmate, and you're off. I don't know, but. You guys, what do you think about that? I mean, we don't know. That's like the X factor. Someone want to jump in on that?
Chad definitely wants to jump in.
I don't know that I feel like my thoughts are too raw still on some of this stuff. It's
mine are too, Jim.
It's a lot to take in. They have certainly left the act intact. If you look closely at how the new stuff is written, it's just written as a new set of immunities. Yeah. It's just a pay-to-play system, ultimately, it seems like. And they'll end up leaving these guys and their corporations alone. But, I mean, who knows when one of these transporters drives through a place that doesn't, accept dispensaries and stuff.
Yep.
And they get pulled over. What's going to happen then?
Nothing good.
Who knows?
That's the big question, right?
They'll probably be okay with the state. I'm sure they won't do anything with them.
That's
but,
a jury instruction.
They pulled the fast one with us. Nobody saw this coming so fast. Nobody knew. And to me, who's to say they're not going to do the same thing with the caregiver system? You wake up one morning, things fine. You wake up next day, the caregiver system's gone.
And I have another question too. If I may?
Sure, please.
Okay. That's one of the things that's been coming across to me from patients and caregivers here in the local area. Does this affect them in any way at all? Like if a caregiver is transporting a patient's medicine to them, or a patient comes to a caregiver and gets the medicine from them and is on the way home and they get stopped, is this going to affect them in any way?
Yes.
It will affect them.
Yeah, it absolutely will. 4210. So Michael's giving me a dirty look.
Well,
you're talking about for non
caregiver supposed to get. How are they supposed to transfer?
Well, they can do it.
So caregiver supposed to transfer.
Yeah. So when I say it'll affect them, so there's some labeling and manifest requirements inside of 4210. So when the caregiver is transporting medibles, for instance. And I believe it's medibles only. So it's only infused products.
Yeah. This is the new part of the law where there is a requirement to keep track of.
Correct.
But if it's not, if it's plant material, Reverend Steve and Cindy,
then there's no effect.
Then there's no effect. This is now because they're recognizing and amending to include these other, the Carruthers case or the things that we are in federal court about. But the at the end of the day, these things are not lawful, and they're declaring in order to retain your immunity from civil penalties for not having the manifest. All other penalties are still in effect, right?
Yes. But it's a $250 civil infraction
for not having the manifest,
right?
But still,
everything else,
if you're over your weights and then the new weights, go through the weights and measures. Do you remember them off the top?
I don't remember them off the top of my head, but I do. The weights and measures, I think they were a win for us. What they really did is they clearly defined how much of a solid, how much of a liquid, and how much of a gaseous form.
2.5 pounds solid. It's 16 ounces per ounce fluid ounces of liquid. So that is 2.5 pints of liquid.
And then 7.5 grams or 7 grams of marijuana infused product in a gaseous form.
Which we don't know what that is.
Well, I believe we found that out. There are inhalers and whatnot that are coming on the market. So, but
even so, it's liquid inside of the can.
Yeah, whatever.
When do medibles have to be tested too? Is that also part of the caregiver?
Nope, that's only for the.
Will they have to be tested?
It's only for the dispensaries.
But there is a new restriction with respect to medibles in that patients can only make them for themselves.
Right.
And they've created new crimes for transfers outside of the caregiver.
They're very specific.
Patient
relationship. I mean, it's not.
That's what we just talked about.
It's no more harsh than the manufacturing crime that we're already being charged.
They can be transferred. The medibles can be transferred from the registered caregiver to the registered patient, but not beyond. And that's how.
That's right.
They would expect you to interpret the law.
That's right.
Anyways, but now that prior was not something that was. It was in question. Like if a caregiver was
penalized,
it was never explicitly penalized. There was arrests, there was property taken, and then there was lab reports that were produced that were.
Right.
Isn't it bizarre to explicitly penalize another transfer?
Yeah, but I mean,
it's like
it's like
one out there.
It's like 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. If you explicitly, can you get charged with both? You think?
The problem is
an underlying public health code violation.
What would prevent it?
Listen, it's time to take a break. It's time to take a break because Frazier's like already he's warmed up and he's like ready to rock.
Rev Steve, Cindy, thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was up middle class, I had a yard of carpet grass. Worked tobacco 9 to 5 and paid my union due. But the sheriff came one day and he took it all away. Left me without anything to lose. He took away my car, they found some letters in a jar. Told me it was probably suspicion of a crime. Well, the day I saw that car being driven by the law, and them boys in back was gonna do some time. Said forfeiture today, Lord, what funny way to pay. Keep peace so all our kids can go outside and play. Without a cotton picking thing loose, I got them Oakland County Task Force blues. They took my mini bar and then they seized my VCR. 'Cause it could be misused watching nasty video. They took away my kitchen all the time. My wife was bitching that it wasn't nothing but oregano. They said my herbal tea might cause sinful ecstasy. Told me it could only lead to doing some harm. They took my ass to jail and took my wife, paid my bail, took my double wide down to the county yard. Well, forfeiture today, Lord, we'll find a way to pay. Keep peace so all our kids can go outside and play. Without a cotton picking thing to lose. Out them Oakland County task force blue. Without a cotton picking thing to lose. Out the Oakland County task force blue.
All right, we're back, and thanks for the Jeff Frazier rocking it. We got to make an album tonight. An album together. Track those numbers. We'll record it. Now that we're in stereo. Do we have any callers? Because I like this new caller thing. Hey, Chad, turn on his microphone, please.
We've got Steve from the MLCC on the line. He wanted to talk a little bit about
Steve
the
from
bills.
MLCC.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's bring him on here.
Steve from the MLCC. Thanks for calling in. Planet Green Trees. Miss you. How you been?
Hey guys,
long time no talk.
Not too bad. Hope I know. Long time no see. Hope everybody's good. Couple things. Kind of glad, but I'm also kind of disappointed some of these happened. But my biggest thing is I understand how the state is allowed to tax. Now they want to put a tax on cannabis for medical reasons or whatever. You know, they just want to make their money. But I don't understand how we could put employees on a tax roll that are working in, say, one of these big grows or something like that, when it's still on a federal Schedule 1. So wouldn't the Fed still be able to come and get you for the taxes? That's what scares me, and I don't really understand that point of it.
You're asking about the employment tax, employee tax, or
I mean, like I've got a couple things on it, but if we start paying tax on it, we're not allowed to put this money in a bank.
There's no question. There are so many areas in that regard that have to really. First of all, the state, up to this point, has never registered or authorized any, even the setting up. Or there's some that have it and do exist, but with the name, marijuana or hemp, or the state won't grant you an LLC or a nonprofit. It's got to be gauged in that. It's very difficult, if any, to get that done. But that's going to have to happen. Which means when that happens, they're going to be authorizing businesses for the sole purpose of engaging in the selling in an industry of marijuana. This is at the state level. And when after that registration takes place, then you go and seek your EIN number, register with the feds. And so what happens then? This isn't their first rodeo on that, but you're absolutely right. And even more so, what about, it's a good time to be banking, I guess, right? If you're, or something, or like a some other type of institution that can not call that money laundering. No, I'm kidding. But,
exactly.
I'm just saying, like, it's.
I don't want to think about 1980s in Miami again.
No, I know. I'm just kidding. No, but it's. And I was saying, like, there were some institutions early on. I remember in Colorado that were a couple of banks in Texas. Actually, Jeff, I heard that, like, family banks that were
Bank of America. Bank of America, actually. My guys up there in Breckenridge, before it was on TV and everything, they were the last ones to actually be able to open a Bank of America account. And that was probably 5-6 years ago. And then they shut everybody's accounts down and froze them.
Yeah. I mean,
it's kind of interesting.
They would.
And another quick thing, though, I don't want to change the subject, but I'm kind of going to do this real quick. But with the infused products, and Mr. Komorn, you might know exactly who I'm talking about or what I'm talking about, but will they be turning or looking at cases that were already processed through, like some of the first runners from Ferndale area? Will they be processing and looking at those cases and maybe flipping them over or anything like that?
Like an amnesty?
You know, say with can.
Yes.
Yeah, like a can.
The
like,
answer
in
is
Colorado, they did flip some people's.
Yeah, we need.
Well, it has a retroactive effect. It does.
Okay.
It eliminates liability for any fault or admitted a fault. It's curative and applies retroactivity as to the following, clarifying the quantities and forms of marijuana for which a person is protected from arrest, including in interpretation. What is this? Is this the language
This
says?
is the language.
Hey,
Yeah,
Jeff
this is
Frazier,
the
I'm sorry.
language out of 4210, which says, quote, this amendatory act is curative and applies retroactively as to the following. Clarifying the quantities and forms of marijuana for which a person is protected from arrest. Okay, the way I read that is if somebody has had their immunity from arrest and prosecution taken away because they had hash oil instead of flour, then this act should apply to cure.
And they would otherwise
that.
be in compliance.
Right.
Right, like
Okay.
you know what I'm saying?
Well, and that's the rest. It also says it precludes an interpretation of, quote, weight as aggregate weight, and it excludes an added inactive substrate, butter, component of a preparation in determining the amount of marijuana, medical marijuana, or usable marijuana that counts the offense. So, I mean, that's some powerful language. We should probably give some...
Yeah, I was going to say, why can't they just talk English?
Well, no, but what it means is this: the butchering and bastardizing of the, simple protection concept of, this is medical marijuana and you're protected from arrest or prosecution, and then saying, oh no, that is not usable marijuana. We got into that, rabbit hole, and is it a, it doesn't have plant material. And this is the whole thing that's going on. But this definitively says, I mean, I'm reading it and I want to read it. If you've been fucked and your probable cause was, taken away because they said that's not usable and therefore it's marijuana and therefore you're outside of the protections of your immunity and would have otherwise been within your weight limit. That's who this applies
Right.
to, arguably. I mean, that's what it means. That's the meaning that it has, and it's explicit and retroactively applying to those that had otherwise not had the protections or they lost them because of these substances. Jeff, you agree?
Yeah, that's exactly the way I read it. It says expressly, not only is it retroactive, it's curative. Meaning, if someone lost their immunities because they had hash oil or other edibles or waxes or whatnot, and were arrested and subsequently prosecuted and in all likelihood had their assets forfeited and whatnot, then this is retroactive and should go back to cure that. Right?
Oh, good deal. Good deal. Well, I appreciate you boys, and I apologize that I haven't been around a lot, but I'm still around.
So good and great questions. Very thought-provoking. Thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. We'll look forward to seeing you soon. Call in again soon.
All right, boys.
Okay.
I will. Definitely. Have a...
You too. I was going to go back. He was asking the question about the taxing and how, we didn't get back to it, but it was about paying employees with revenue involved with violation of Schedule 1 that are federal tax. Well,
it's incredibly complicated.
But one of the things we know for certain is that the federal government up to this date and time has been receiving payments, tax payments that have been explicitly for the, the sale of marijuana. And there's been rules by which the government has been receiving and applying and punishing those that don't apply with that. And really what it comes down to is it's considered an illegal business still. You do not get from it the same deductions you would as another business, although the other ancillary aspects of the business are treated more similarly to traditional deductions and whatnot. But for the overhead associated with the selling of marijuana, it is virtually...
It's ridiculous.
Possible
literally, a retail establishment could be purchasing marijuana from a caregiver, and they can't deduct the cost of the purchase from the taxable amount.
That's a good point. No one's really thinking about the federal tax of this, right? Like, how much? It's 27. Okay, they're coming with 71%. 71% federal tax. Let's go. Call it right there.
And they don't want these businesses. Cash cow right there. Holy shit. So
it's a good time to be in the banking /
that's right.
money lender business. Okay.
Well, for all of our listeners, if you want to get in on the discussion, give us a call at 224-803-3098. We're going to go for a break, and then we'll go back to another caller.
Yeah, that's good. You got good timing.
Right on. We'll see everybody in a minute.
Phil, you want to break?
Let's listen to some Zeppelin.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not trying to work.
Some lead for your
head. I'm not trying
head.
to work it to it.
Ba-dum-bum.
And then we'll do some Folsom Prison Blues.
All right, we're back. Thanks for staying with us. I want to do a couple shout-outs real quick. First to Mark Novak, good friend of mine from way back when, Darren Dingo, and Jimmy San Carlos. Those guys, shout out. Hey, guys. All right, Chad, I know you were talking about the, you want to talk about taxes? Yeah. Let's talk about...
taxes are interesting.
Chad, give us one.
On this. Oh, you need a mic there? Okay, how about that one?
You know who knows a lot about taxes is our good friend, Thetford Township Trustee Eric Gunnels.
Is he on the line?
He is. He's on the line.
Thank goodness.
Right now, and I think he can help us out here.
Because I was already out of material.
Eric Gunnels, welcome to the show. I understand you're now campaigning for David Layton. Is that right?
It looked
no,
that way.
He needs no campaigning. He's an automatic. He's running again for the prosecutor unchallenged. So he's an automatic win for the general election, as well as I already won the primary. So I'm an automatic win as well.
Oh, so you two share that in common, and you still campaign for him? Is that what you're saying? I'm kidding. All right, so let's talk about what's going on.
But I still go to his birthday parties.
I know. Okay. So listen. So you want to? What do you think? You like these bills? What's your city's position on this? Are you guys going to be embracing and encouraging? Do you think is it going to be happening there? Thetford?
Michael, I really don't. Yeah, I really can't speak for my other board members, but I know that my personal feelings on 4210 just do not appeal to me. The language, first of all, I just don't like the idea that we're left up to this illusion that the state is going to give out these licenses to whoever we embrace with the magical cloak of acceptance, and I think that's premature to think that everyone that is asking me for a license is going to get one. And I can tell you already that I've gotten multiple calls from people. So, and I don't even know what to tell these people. I mean, I barely even know where to begin. Not all of these people can just sit on my tiny little township square and do all 5 of these types of businesses. We just can't take that on. It's just not enough room here, and how that's going to play out in the future, I don't know. It's yet to be seen. I'm troubled by it. I really am.
I wasn't actually asking for a specific. I just was curious. Okay, let me ask it from a general way. What's the reaction amongst other people in your situation that sense that they're, other townships and?
I think currently I haven't spoken to every dispensary owner.
I'm asking more like from the other city officials
for on the municipality side. I haven't spoken since these laws have passed. I have not spoken to any official of my township, whether that's a chief of police or other than I have run this by a zoning official. Of course, we all know Theo. He's a zoning board official in my township, but he doesn't. He feels the same way I do. He doesn't know what to make of it either. How do you pick and choose? Hey, you get to have Willy Wonka's magical golden ticket, and you don't. How do we pick and choose who gets a license and who doesn't? I don't know.
I think
you
flip a coin.
You get money.
No,
that's the legislature. They showed us how you do it. Whoever has the most money.
Right. No, what I think the more interesting question.
According to Lansing, I just open up a committee hearing, and then we just whichever business donates the most money to that committee to put it together, they're the one that will embrace. Is that how it's supposed to work?
I think they have to bribe you directly too. I think
Eric, you're asking a lot of rhetorical
financial details.
You're asking a lot of
talk about that part.
Eric, you're asking a lot of rhetorical questions,
right.
which they're needed to in order to.
But they're more questions, and they're not. We have no answers, Michael.
There are answers. Listen. There are answers to, how would a township or city go about structuring or outlining the necessary requirements for this process. I mean, that's something that's not unknown, number one. I think the bigger unknown is what happens, and I think this is a better question to be discussed, is what happens if a city or township takes the step to go through all of that, picks its desired licensees potentially with whatever local authority they've been given by this law, and they've made their decision. They've vetted them to whatever extent they want, and they are now what did I describe it earlier? They are now sponsoring them in this new application, which is going to be to the state and would not be able to be applied for if this local interaction and approval and vetting and sponsoring wasn't taking place. And then the state either denies for reasons that we're uncertain of with maybe no legal recourse, or delays for reasons that we're not quite certain for whatever reasons and without any recourse. What recourse does the township have? Because think about it this way, if the township goes through all that and does all that and actually wants it to take place, it's not just for the business but also for the patients and others to get, and maybe when legalization happens, the same. So what is the authority that the townships have in enforcing the desire of their local option to engage?
Right. That is the question.
It will be harmonized by the Supreme Court.
You have none. You have the township. I mean, once they issue their permission, game over, man. Like they're now within the realm of the state, and the only person that's going to move them is going to be the state.
I wonder about that. I mean, if you think about it, listen,
that's what scares me.
Of course, that's the obvious. Let's assume that that's the case. Okay, what is the recourse? I'm thinking, one of the potential recourse is the township itself taking some action with its, representatives in the jurisdiction, right? I mean, taking some kind of way to complaining. I mean, there may be some. The problem is that they've got this other separate bill. Remind me again what it is, Chad.
Which one?
That removes the authority of
the Administrative Rules
Act, which would allow for. And let me put this in context. Many may remember there was a petition filed by Lisa Smith on behalf of NOAA to add autism to the medical marijuana registry list amongst the other debilitating conditions, and it was originally denied. And I use this analogy because it's the same kind of situation. You've got an administrative body. Maybe there'll be a different authority. There's going to be 5 instead of 5 and 17 here. There was, had just 7 or 11, whatever it was. But there was a developed government body by Lara for the purposes of evaluating and making a recommendation to the head of Lara, who had the final say in it. That is what this particular board is going to have the role of, and they are going to be evaluating likewise and determining what applications are going to be had. And I'm using the example in this Lisa Smith case where we were denied, her application was denied a second time for this reason that someone else had applied and failed. That's not a reason we claimed, so we were able to sue in court. We went over to circuit court, filed a lawsuit. Tim Knowlton, great lawyer, and we ultimately compelled the Attorney General, the lawyer for Lara, to give us an opportunity to have a hearing with the board so that we could present testimony and the application would be considered as new. And I'm just saying that was a fantastic remedy, and the fact that we were able to do that when they were, playing shenanigans with the application process of this administrative body. The concerns that we have, someone was talking about this earlier, how they
dragged their heels through the entire legal proceeding too.
They did, but the point being that the reason why they're doing this, it would expedite things. My thing is what it does, it allows them to do whatever they want without any oversight or recourse, whatever. Because you could say this: if someone believes honestly that they have the capabilities to pass a financial audit or the strict scrutiny and oversight, microscopic evaluation of what?
Chad.
Yeah, but
of being able to pass, and they want to go and they think they can do it, and they pass in the local community and they get their state application. The state says no, you should have a cause of action or some recourse where it is evaluated in a more objective setting. Jeff Frazier, what do you say?
I think that The idea that we have in our head that Lara is somehow separate and apart from the police or separate, some kind of a functioning agency of the government is too big a leap. I'm not ready to take that leap. You don't, if you want to take a look at what police state looks like, it's when you've got one big giant amorphous agency whose enforcement arm is the Michigan state, is the police, and they're serving, the function of what should be the Department of Commerce and the Department of, Health and the Department of, Licensing and the Department of, I don't see anything about Lara being in charge of all of these things as anything that's good. I think that you can just kind of think of that as part of the AG police law enforcement folk.
Agree. The Special Attorney General, Michigan State Police connection.
Correct.
Yep.
All right. Well, we got Eric Gunnels on the line.
Eric, get back on it.
We're going to take.
I've got one question. So, like in this, in this determination, of passing these different things, of your financial, background check. What does that entail? Are they going to deny someone because they're poor? Is that a criteria of saying, well, no, sorry, you don't make enough money per year to get a license?
Just to be clear, the answer to that is yes, for sure, 100% chance of it. And what's more, I think that if people don't have the money to get through the entire process, they are also going to miss it.
Yeah, I agree.
And here's
it's going to
something
cost a tremendous amount of money.
Something just kind of peripherally to keep in mind. Neither the Kennedys nor Pablo Escobar made their money in opening dispensaries on the corner. The money's in transport.
That's totally unknown, new slice of the market, new industry that's been created by these bills, forced into a system that was already trimmed down and somewhat optimized from a pricing perspective. Theoretically, they're gonna push a lot of new changes into, I would say.
That's right.
And the result of those changes, I think, is highly unlikely to create a functional market. As one player, a single player trying to go into this, it seems to me that it's calculated financial disaster. Yeah. And unless you control everything and have preordained contracts with the transporter and lab and control all three layers, grower, processor, and dispensary retail outlet, there's a very good chance of just pure business failure on this stuff.
Well, I don't see it as business.
It's not a real business. It's not going to create a real free market at all. It's just it's pre-planned is what it looks like to me. That it's meant to glue together known components.
That's right, and it's time for a break, guys. Let's take 5. I know we got Sharmi Golson in the queue.
Oh, fantastic! Make Gunnels stay on too. And
Gunnels stay on. We'll be right back. You're listening to Planet Green Trees.
Oh, Jim.
Chad. There we go. All right. I hear that train a-comin', it's rolling around the bend, and I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps a-rolling on down to San Antonio. When I was just a baby, My mama told me, son, always be a good boy, don't ever play with guns. But I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. When I hear that whistle blowing, I hang my head and cry. I bet there's rich folks eating in a fancy dining car. They're probably drinking coffee and smoking big cigars. Well, I know I had it coming. I know I can be free. But those people keep moving, and that's what tortures me. Well, if they freed me from this prison, if that railroad train was mine, I bet I'd move it all a little farther down the line. Far from Folsom Prison, that's where I want to stay. And I let that lonesome whistle blow my blues away.
There you go, Jim.
Rick Thompson's in the queue.
Rick Thompson in the queue. All right, hold on a second here.
What about Charmer there?
I think this is Rick. Rick, is that you?
Rick Thompson, are you there? Rick Thompson.
Hi, Rick Thompson's here. Yeah, I am.
All right.
I am what I am.
Got some news, Rick?
I love the musical interludes. Love the music tonight. That's fantastic.
It is. It's time for the news with Rick Thompson.
Right. I don't really think so. It's not time for the news. I don't have news prepared. I was calling in to talk about the subject tonight.
Okay, good. Leave him alone. He's had a night off. He's at a listening party for PGT. It's the new thing raging across the state of Michigan right now. Get together, listen.
Well, check it out. Eric Gunnels is here at this listening party, but Eric walked outside the house in order to get on PGT and separated himself from everybody else. So he got to talk, and we had to listen to him.
Is he still standing outside?
Yeah, I think so.
Because
Yeah,
I have him on hold. So let's see how
great.
long we can keep Eric Gunnels on hold.
Yeah. But here's something I think you all should consider, too. When we talk about barriers to entry, when you have a 500-plant license, and realize it's up to 500, but who's going to award someone a license if they don't have the facilities to create 500 plants? That's at least a 10,000 square foot area for growth and at least another 10,000 square foot area for storage and for curing and for all the computer records and everything else you need. That's a lot of warehouse space to be able to carry for months and months before it yields any kind of revenue. That's why we originally thought that the minimum threshold should be a 100-plant commercial limit, because that would be an easy transition for caregivers to go into the commercial market. But at 500 plants, it's going to be cost prohibitive for almost everybody that's in the system right now to continue to practice.
Go on, Rick.
The way that they do.
Go on with that. Explain that in a for those that may not have a full comprehension of when we're talking about 500 plants, the amount of cost for just the equipment. How would you, if you're going inside, of course, like just forget the floor space. I mean, we'll throw in a rental number there for the square footage, but you go ahead, throw out some numbers.
All right. Well, let's talk about it. If we're conceding that it takes about 10 to 15 square feet of space to grow a single adult plant, and that you have to have enough space to be able to grow, 500 adult plants at a given time. 10,000 square feet doubled to 20,000. That's got to be, a $2,000 monthly at least in moderate terms, and in non-moderate terms up to $15,000 monthly as far as that goes. Now, if you install a hydroponic system, which is a flood and drain style system, there's a lot less electricity involved, and it's a simple setup. But at a 500 plant limit, you're talking about probably another infrastructure of $30,000 to $50,000 just for the hydro systems. Now, remember, you have electronic monitoring. Potentially, you have CO2 devices. You have sulfur burners. You have a lot of different systems to control environment. And with the 500 plant grow, it's a very large environment to control, especially if you consider it's probably subdivided into several different growing areas so that you have a flower and a veg and a clone, each one requiring their own environmental controls. So you can expect legitimately to spend up to $100,000 to outfit just the cultivation area of this alone. Now remember that everything has to be tested before it gets sent to a processor to be turned into edibles or oil, which means that the cultivation center is responsible for the custody of that plant until it's cleared by the testing authority. So every plant that's harvested has to be held at the cultivation center until it's tested, which could be several weeks. Remember that it has to meet minimum moisture standards before it can be sent off for sampling, and that requires a very large on-site processing center for drying, storing, and preparing. And with batch testing, there could be several different batches or multiple batches per harvest created based on each plant genus. So you're looking at a significant storage and holding facility for each one of these as well. So that's an outlay of capital that most people simply can't afford to do.
Well,
I think
so.
Eric,
Listen, hold on. It's funny. I've always said this. It kind of applies in the opposite direction, which is like, well, no one said you had to have 12 plants, Mr. Caregiver. To the explanation that and you're talking about just because someone's got a 500 plant doesn't mean they couldn't start out with a 200, which may be more feasible and build some revenue and just get some plant and widgets onto. And some people with 200 plants can grow maybe as much as someone with 500 plants could. You know what I'm saying?
Depending on the size of plant.
Michael, let me comment on that real quick. Although it's certainly possible for someone with a 500 plant grow license to grow less than that, the question becomes: would the state government approve anyone for a potential 500 plant grow that wasn't capable of producing 500 plants in that facility? Would you license someone for a potential 500 plants knowing they could only handle 2? My guess is probably not, especially considering the volume of applicants. So I imagine that they'd require you to have that full facility before they even gave you a 500 plant license. That's just opining, but it seems like it would make sense.
What's Thetford Township going to do, Eric? 200 plant grows, 500 plant grows, 1 million plant grows.
I mean, I think there's room for all. I mean, why couldn't we get like 50 licenses to grow like 50 and 100 plants in Thetford Township? I mean, I think we would, there's already, I'm sure there's 50 people here that would want those licenses, could afford them, and have the facility to build them or to grow them. So why not? Do you think they're going to give my township 50 licenses to grow 50 plants?
Price and diversion.
Here's what I think. They're going to price it or model it from the alcohol model, and the alcohol licenses are distributed with a maximum number available per region. You can only get X number of liquor licenses in Genesee County or what have you. And you can imagine that since they're following every other aspect of that alcohol model, they'll do the same thing too. So you can figure that the exclusivity per region is probably going to be guaranteed. I see Jim Powers is laughing. That's because the brilliance of the truth of my statement just shines through. Is that right, Jim?
Well, I mean that's one reason. The other is the profanity that was just uttered into the mic unintentionally by our fearless leader.
Chad was making some comments.
Sorry,
it was some studio error.
Please you? Is that what it is?
No, some studio mistake that happened here.
Sorry.
Back to the topic at hand.
So why can't we get these licenses? And then my next question is, whoever does get these licenses to grow, who do they, if they don't actually work with the dispensary who has the license, then they must work with the transfer company. How are you going to make a business transaction with the transfer company? You know what I mean? Based on what? I mean, are they going to test your product? I mean, are they going to be the ones to decide whether your product makes the shelf of some other dispensaries? There's an old joke, and it kind of goes something like this. It's like there's this fisherman, and they give fish to the people at the docks, and the docks give the fish, gut the fish and process the fish, and they put it and they can it, and they give it to the people that sell the fish. In the can. Well, the guy that sell the fish to the people that retail the fish to the people that buy the fish to eat the fish, Well, it's like by the time it gets to them, then it's spoiled and rotten. And then the retailer says, well, hey, to the resale guy, to the transport guy, hey, you just sold me rotten fish. You know what I mean? I can't eat this. And the guy says, well, that's not for eating. That's for selling. You see what I'm saying?
That's not like a funny type joke.
I know it's not. I know it's not funny.
Type joke.
But it's a clever scenario on what happens when they get it to the place. I mean, from what then? What is quality perfection going to be? Is quality going to be assured? And is quality going to be assured by who? Is quality going to be checked and monitored and preserved by who?
I think the way it's written, I'm not sure that they will take your
job one.
I think it's written something like this, Eric. If I'm not mistaken, they will take your taxes and they will have absolutely no liability for anything that they're doing.
That's right.
So,
right.
Pay
and it's just. I just when I look at that and I just try to think about how this actually works practically in the real world, I'm dumbfounded. I'm like, okay, how does the grower then make a correspondence with the transfer companies to have to get the right sale or to get the dollar per mount that they're talking about?
All right, Eric, we have to take a break right now.
Michelle's going to cut in, Eric.
Yeah. We got to take a break and
we'll be
come
right
back. Stay with us.
All right.
Candlelight, those San Francisco nights were the best in town. Just by chance you crossed the diamond with the pearl. You turned it on the world. That's when you turned the world around. Did you feel like Jesus? Did you realize that you were a champion in their eyes? Yours was kitchen clean. Everyone stopped to stare at your Technicolor motorhome. Every apron had your number on the wall. You must have had it all. You go to LA on a dare and you go it alone. Could you live forever? Could you see the day? Could you feel your whole world fall apart and fade away? Get along, keep shining.
That was not recorded, was it? Okay. I'm going to stop this. All right, we're back. We have approximately 10 minutes left. I have no idea what we're doing. Jim, what do you want to do? Talk more about the bills? Okay.
Yeah, I think...
Jim, here's your chat.
If I had a microphone. I mean, we've got... Rick is still on the line. We'll bring him back on. I'm sure Rick
What does Rick have to say?
You know, hold on. I know exactly. We're going to return to this, Rick, and I will... Is Rick on?
Yeah, he's on.
Okay. One of the things that, of course, the concerns are Eric Gunnels and everything. No, I am not. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. But in order for this industry, this new created inorganic industry to compete with the organic industry that's brought prices down, quality is better than ever, more options and ways to ingest, and just all that cut off and, considered a competing market, And... in order for this thing to succeed in any way, it's going to have direct access to patients. So there's going to have to be, if they're wise, places where people can go and buy medical cannabis. And yes, the argument may be, well, we're not going to have that many at first because we don't need that many, because in a little while we're going to go legalization. We just need these things in place, and then we're going to go from 220,000 possible customers to 8 million possible customers, and then we won't need to deal with, and that's where we'll get our revenue. That may be the concept, and with that they may be able to have fewer places, maybe not. Then they can compete with, and then they can put some money back into the banks, I think. But still, they're going to need access points where people are going to be able to access it and buy it. So how many is that? I mean, how many access points do you need people to have so 8 million people could pay $300 or $600 for a quarter ounce of marijuana or something? Who knows? But Steve Green here from the Full Melt, not Melt. Welcome, Radio Steve. Come on with the voice. Let's go.
So this is, okay, do you know the plight of the people in Illinois? Do you understand their plight out there with their medical marijuana program?
None.
Yeah.
There isn't any. That's exactly right. And do you understand why there isn't any? Because there's no patients there supporting the program, because all the doctors are scared to sign certifications because the legislature's left them wide open to being somehow reprimanded in against their license. So I'm much afraid that there are going to be some steps in place with this system when it gets in place where either there aren't enough people supporting the system because prices are too high and they have other options. And then when that starts to collapse, you know where the pressure's going to go? It's not going to go on those people with those licenses. It's going to go on
the competing market.
Yes.
You know that. I know.
I'm just saying. There are.
That was always the end game.
No,
though.
yeah, of course. But the problem is that it doesn't make people support these places. If you're not giving them what they need, if you're not giving them specifically what they were getting before, and that's what people are going to want. Let's face it.
So I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, and I'm going to tell you that at least in Detroit, some of the provisioning centers that I've been in are selling, marijuana for $400, $500, sometimes $600 an ounce after you extrapolate what they're charging for an eighth or a quarter ounce.
Sure.
And they have lines almost out the door. So, as much as
but they're getting sold what they want, though.
No,
I get
that. But what I'm saying is that I believe that if these facilities are licensed, even if they're charging this insane amount, I still think they'll be supported, and I think that there'll be a decent amount of revenue filtering through those. But I also think that once the distribution system is in place, the next argument in Lansing from our law enforcement friends
that's
is
just a foregone conclusion. But I'm saying in the meanwhile, these places have to get up and running.
They're already up and running.
What these?
I'm not suggesting. I'm not suggesting that there's going to be equal opportunity. I'm saying, my thing with the equal opportunity and optimism into this program would be it's only meaningful and not fantasy if you've got legal recourse. If you do qualify and you have whatever it is that they're asking for, and recognizing that they are looking for people that they would give liquor licenses to, or not liquor distributors, licenses to.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be, and they're able to do that with not a lot of those licenses given out. They have more retail shops, which is my point, which is I think they're going to get a lot of these retail shops, but they're going to look like maybe, what these places are going to be something that they can do that on the side. I don't know, maybe not. It probably will not be that, obviously. But at the end of the day, it's going to be something that's going to have to, there's going to have to be a lot of them in order for there to be outlets. The source, that's still up for debate. There's a lot of talk that the bills are going to move to a unlimited plant grow, so they can
boom.
So the licenses can now be controlled by the fewer, But and if that happens, the question. I mean, let's assume that doesn't.
Incidentally, that's the way it is right now in Pennsylvania. Their licensing there is unlimited in grow side. There are no limits in the number of plants you could grow. You could literally grow 1 million plants, and as long as you could contain it and do whatever the other stuff, you could do it.
That's what they want to do here, and they want to limit the number of grows.
Well, right now it's an unlimited. The law is written so that there can be no limits placed, even by the board, on the number of grows.
Yeah. So the funny thing about that is the board is basically given free reign to promulgate whatever rules
they can change it at any time.
They can do anything. They can change.
They don't have to do it by rule. They can just do it like
administratively
because they feel like it. They can change the plant count licenses. There's no need to come back to the legislature and amend this. They will do whatever they want. Period.
And it's going to be the police anyways, because they're going to do what they want.
Yeah. So. That's right. Laura is the police, and unfortunately, this program gives complete and unfettered access to these facilities and their employees for law enforcement. The Fourth Amendment does not exist if you participate in this program.
Is this a right you're giving up by license?
Yes.
Is that so? You're literally waiving that right.
4209 specifically says law enforcement, and they're very clear that any law enforcement can enter your facility at any time.
This is
or members of the board.
Yep. And seize all of your records and all of your plants and marijuana.
Yeah, this is a police-run dispensary system. Is what this basically is.
Similar to the alcohol system, where they can, by virtue of your granted license, it's like you're driving a car.
Right.
You got a driver's license. The police, you see a lights on behind you. You have to get over one lane and stop if it's safe. Let them pass. Or if they're pulling you over, you got to get over. Right. That's part of the. You got a license. You got to do that. If you don't do that, you're outside of your license. They're going to
90
bring
seconds.
the heat to you.
Right.
So similarly, you are going to have a license and be doing this with the controlled substance. They're coming in whenever they want. It's part of the game, and they're going to look at your records and see. And in fact, they're going to expect you to keep track of each and every single individual patient, and that's really the problem. That's where I think I think they run into a problem there. I don't know why.
I think they run into a lot of problems in a lot of places. I think there are a lot of rules that are going to have to be changed.
Constitutionally, Jeff. I mean, because we were talking about before about
seconds.
I mean, I don't think that there's a legal challenge to suggest that, the bills, because they deprive you of your Fifth Amendment or Fourth Amendment rights, that's somehow going to affect them. No, this is administrative. They're making a law. You want to participate.
Right.
It's a controlled substance. You're giving that up.
It's a privilege you're giving.
And you're waiving all of your background, and you're going to subject yourself to scrutiny. And if they find stuff about you, who knows what they're going to do? And if it's fraudulent in some way, they may penalize you. It's a lot because it's all managed by Lara/the police. Lara/the police. So you are engaging in and disclosing it and telling people,
we should just call them the Larapolice now for now.
Yes.
10
Police.
Look over there. It's the Larapolice.
There's a story, and this is an interesting in the context. Florida passed a CBD law, I think 2 years ago.
Yep.
How many plants are being grown there right now?
0.
You know how many patients are getting medicine?
0.
Actually, I believe there are plants growing in Florida now. There are plants growing now in Florida.
I know they were talking about licensing.
They've already got the licenses have already been issued in Florida.
I don't know that they're through the whole process. I heard stories that one of the somewhere below the border there was, and this is not, and I just mean, and it came out of the cash unaccounted for came from. It was delivered to pay for the licensing, like $10 million, something like that. They sent it back, But it's that kind of stuff that is going to be problematic for these processes of individuals who would otherwise not have the cash necessary, that's been in the
demanded,
bank.
right.
No, yeah, in the bank, and this come from, and I think that's where people are going to fail out. Am I right? I mean, unless they can show that they've got income, as if someone was applying for what would be an equivalent. It wouldn't be a liquor license. It would have to be some other kind of. We have to have financial stability in order to
law license,
strip club,
to be a judge, maybe, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I looked at the Michigan State Bar application, and about
Poll
6 of the
dancer.
12 sections were like, how much money do you have and where can you get some more? Kind of thing.
It's hard being a member of any club that would have you as a.
Well, it's hard out there for a pimp.
I wouldn't be.
What's that?
What is it? It's rough out here for a pimp.
Right. Yes.
Big pimpin'.
Well, it's been a long night, fellas. It's 10 o'clock.
Whee!
I think it's time to call it a night.
All right,
let Chad go home.
Yeah,
Play some not Led Zeppelin.
Not going to play us out, Jeff? No?
I didn't mean that. I was just, saying don't play Led Zeppelin. 'Cause that's the one that gets flagged.
What if he does a cover?
That's what's getting, Stairway to Heaven's going to get flagged like every time.
Oh, yeah. Every single time.
Every single time. Good night, everybody.
Here we
Gonna take my blues away to Santa Cruz. Gonna take my blues away to Santa Cruz. That just love ain't nothing on this island. Gonna take 4 days Santa Cruz. Gonna take 4 days Santa Cruz. Me and my car gone down playing blues. I got a heavy metal car, Lord, big and the chain is hanging around my neck like an albatross over our garden and my street. And that's what I like. Well, I'm taking my blues today to Santa Cruz. Take my blues away to Santa Cruz. And me and my guitar and gone down play the blues. Me and my guitar and gone down play the blues.
Well, not too many people smoking out here tonight. That's pretty good. Kind of bothers some people. If you're in a sleazy place like this and people start smoking, it's like, it doesn't bother me in a nightclub because I'm used to it. If I'm in a restaurant, though, and I'm eating and someone says, "Hey, mind if I smoke?" I'm not sticking with the regular stuff tonight. You paid the money. You paid $4? $4.50? Believe me, sometimes it's a good investment. Sometimes I come out here, I do $4.75 show. I might do a $5 show, so if you pay $4.50, I don't do a $4.25 show. I keep going. I do a $4.50 show, and that's it, baby. So you may make a little bread off this tonight. I'm into bread. I love money. I love everything about money. I love to eat it. Eat money. You say you can't take it with you? I'm taking it with me. I'm into bread. I love bread. I bought some pretty good stuff. Got me a $300 pair of socks. I got a fur sink. Oh, let's see, electric dog polisher. That was a good one. Gasoline-powered turtleneck sweater. And, of course, I bought some dumb stuff, too, you know. All right, well, let's start. Okay, you paid the money. You're expecting to see a professional show, so let's not waste any more time. Let's go with professional show business. Hey! Let's go. Okay. I'm on drugs. I mean, you know what it is. It's the deal, man. I'll have to get small. It's a wild, wild drug. Very dangerous for kids, though, because they get really small. I knew I shouldn't get small when I'm driving, but... I was driving around the other day. And a cop pulls me over. And he goes, "Hey, are you small?" I said, "No, I'm tall. He said, "Well, I'm going to have to measure you. We got a little test they gave you. It's a balloon. And if you can get inside of it, they know you're small." And they can't put you in a regular cell either, because you walk right out. One night I got really small and got inside a vacuum cleaner. And the drug wore off. I retained the shape of a vacuum cleaner for about 2 weeks. Wild. To get small. You say to me, "Steve, how did you get your start? Was it easy for you on the way up?" No. I started off at the bottom. I was born a poor black child. And all day long around the house, they'd sing the blues. And then I heard my first Mantovani record. And I knew that this is where it's at for me. This is the kind of music I enjoy. These are my people. So I decided to become white. And I had my cock shortened. And I got a job as a television weatherman. With the slow change, I'm still black from the neck down and from my arms up. So. Okay, I don't like to gear my material to the audience, but I'd like to make an exception because I was told that there is a convention of plumbers in San Francisco this week, and I understand about 30 of them came down to the show tonight. So before I come out, I worked up a joke especially for the plumbers. And now those of you who aren't plumbers probably won't get this and won't think it's funny, but I think those of you who are plumbers will really enjoy this. And so if you're not a plumber, please just bear with me for a while and just kind of hold off on this. But I would like to do this for the plumbers. So here we go. This lawn supervisor was out on a sprinkler maintenance job. And he started working on a Finlay sprinkler head with a Langstrom 7-inch gangly wrench. Well, just then a little apprentice leaned over and said, "You can't work on a Finlay sprinkler head with a Langstrom 7-inch wrench." Well, this infuriated the supervisor, so he went and got volume 14 of the Kinsley manual. And he reads to him and says, "The Langstrom 7-inch wrench can be used with the Finlay sprocket." Just then, the little apprentice leaned over and says, It says sprocket, not socket. Were those plumbers supposed to be here this show, or was that... Okay. Well, I think we're having fun now, eh, folks? Sure, I'm pissed. But what difference does it make? We're having some fun here at the fabulous boarding house in San Francisco, California. We've got music, we've got laughter and wonderful time here at the boarding house. It's only $4 every 5 minutes here at the boarding house in San Francisco. This is such a hard chord. I don't know. Oh, sure, I could make the easy chord. I could do this one. I don't know, this has more meaning to me, I guess. Actually, to make the full chord, you have to play part of it with your nose for the bass. That enables you to make the reach down here with the little finger. But you know, I see people going to college for 14 years, studying to be doctors and lawyers. And I see people getting up at 7:30 every morning, going to work at the drugstore to sell flare pins. But the most amazing thing to me is I get paid for doing this. Okay. I don't know what you heard about my show. You probably heard I was into the comedy thing, but kind of getting out of that now, getting more into the music, and this is what I dig. So I'm kind of getting into American Indian folk music. I'd like to do one of these tunes for you now because now I realize as a semi-professional comedian, I can't come out here and just sing a straight folk song and have people get into it the way I have. So what I've done is I've jazzed it up a little bit, given it that pop feel, so you might get into the rhythm of it. But basically, I have kept it very traditional, and I'd like to do this for you right now. So this might be your introduction to this form of music that I love so much. So here we go. Little girls. Yeah. Okay. By the way, I don't do any dirty material. I don't like to. I don't know if that's what you came to hear. I don't know. You're saying, oh, I wonder if he's going to be real dirty. Probably. Are any kids here tonight? Yeah. There's a little kid. No. Still a baby? Right. Meet me up. No, I don't like to offend people. I'm doing those fag jokes or anything like that because well, I don't like to offend people, and you never know who might be in the audience. So let's just. Well, how many fags do we have? Just a couple? Okay, these two fruits are walking down the street, and I've had a good time since I've been here in San Francisco. There's so much. It's an intellectual town. I'm certainly into that because today I went to the Turd Museum, and that was fun. They've got some great shit there, and I guess some of that crap's worth a lot of money too. Well, we're going to be starting. I've been delaying here just a few minutes. I'm waiting for the drugs to take effect. So no, that's a joke. I'm not into drugs. I don't mess around with that stuff. I used to. I'm going to have to be honest with you. I mean, in the old days, and everybody would get stoned, and the whole audience would be stoned, and I'd walk out stoned, and I'd come out and go...
people would be watching me, and they'd be going, hey, those guys are pretty good. They come up to me after the show,